Let's talk about the new season of Monster, which is the show that Ryan Murphy's over there running at Netflix, which basically takes a look at true crime stories in America, puts a lens to it, and sort of sensationalizes it a bit. I will say that. I'm sorry if you're an enjoyer of the show and all of that. I'm not trying to knock you or anything on it. I'm just saying that's how I feel about what Ryan Murphy's doing over there. This latest season is the Ed Gein story. We've seen him tackle Jeffrey Dahmer for the first one, and the second season that just released last year tackled Lyle and Eric Menendez. So this new season is about Ed Gein, and a lot of the marketing really is focusing on so many of the things that Ed Gein's crimes sort of inspired for like Hollywood and all of that, which includes things like Psycho, Silence of the Lambs, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, amongst others. So what this show I think does is what I think a lot of true crime does, and it kind of bothers me in a way, and I've talked about this before, is it sort of puts these like horrendous and just despicable acts of violence and makes these monsters the sort of sole like face of it all, right? And at its core, it is like, to me, feeling dehumanizing and sort of like disrespecting the victims, the family of the victims, their descendants, all of that. And it's a thing I have with true crime, I think, because a lot of what we see happen with it is it becomes a thing of profiting off of these like horrendous things. And yeah, you know, we do need to learn about what happened and all of that, and it sort of needs to be documented, which is fine. That's why there's files and things you can read in the library and all of that, and these books that are made. But sometimes, you know, things just get a bit too crazy out there where you have like hundreds of books and movies and TV shows on a sole crime. And, you know, people try to say, well, it's just more information comes to light and all of that, but it's still at its core, somebody's profiting off of this, and it just kind of comes off a bit weird to me. And I can make a whole conversation about this, but I'll talk about the trailer right now. But I just have a weird thing with true crime and all of that. Now, of course, I'm being a hypocrite right here talking about it as well, but at the end of the day, we do talk about TV shows and movies and things like that. So that's what we're gonna do. So this is Monster, the Ed Gein story. And Ed Gein, if you don't or do know, Ed Gein is a convicted murderer and suspected serial killer. So this show is actually going to focus on those crimes and I believe his upbringing, but also on the aftermath of his crimes coming out, because there is somebody here that is credited as being Alfred Hitchcock in the show, which I think is interesting to note right there. So I believe we're going to find out how Alfred Hitchcock came to make Psycho because of Ed Gein's crimes. And this was in 1957 when a hardware store owner named Bernice Warden went missing, and Ed Gein had been seen with her shortly before her disappearance. When they finally found her, they found that she had been killed, eviscerated, decapitated by Ed Gein, and they pretty much saw that Ed Gein's home was a house of horrors because apparently he had parts of women all around that he would use also to make household items as well as clothing. So that's where pretty much you get the whole Texas Chainsaw Massacre, things we see that happened in that film are kind of inspired by those horrors that day. This also included face masks, which Texas Chainsaw Massacre as well, and also a woman's suit that he would wear. So we've seen that as well in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but we also see that in Psycho as well. So a lot of these things start to really click with you. Today they released a trailer as well, which I will say the trailer in itself looks good. Like the cinematography there is great. Charlie Hunnam is playing Ed Gein, and I think just from seeing him in these like short instances in the trailer, Charlie Hunnam is tapping into some very sick, demented like realms here. It is creepy and honestly looks like a great performance from him. So on that aspect, I do definitely gotta say that Charlie Hunnam is really putting himself into this role as well. The trailer looks crazy. It looks insane. I wonder how much of it really is trying to be as outlandish and all of that. The posters they put out about a couple of weeks ago for this TV show were kind of a little bit like because they kind of try to mimic the horror movies that Ed Gein has inspired, and it kind of came off a little bit like, oh, you really just go in there and don't give a damn, right? Nonetheless, we'll watch the show, we'll see how it goes. I have yet to see any of the other Monster series myself, and I just don't know. I was always like against watching them because of that way I feel. And like I said, I'm not trying to say you're wrong or anything like that because you watched them and liked them and all that. I'm just saying this is just how I feel about these certain things, and I try to keep myself away from them. But let's see. I'll give it a chance. We'll see how it is. This is going to be coming out on October 3rd. It is the third season in this anthology series that, based on how the other series have performed, this should perform great for Netflix. So of course there's no reason for them to stop it. They are a business and they're gonna do what they're gonna do, right? I just think that the whole way that true crime and the way it's tangled in our capitalistic society just kind of makes it very exploitative and just a little bit like off-putting for me to think about how these victims feel seeing this, or the descendants of victims. Because I get it, these are decades old murders that happened and serial killers, but at the same time, so many people that want to profit off of true crime will go ahead and do crimes from like a year or two ago, some that may be solved or unsolved, and try to give their own input. And that's where it gets really murky for me. And that's, I think, what gives me a bad taste in my mouth, is when you have these people condensing these horrendous things to less than a minute or so for people that this is their reality right now that they're facing, trying to find out what exactly happened to their loved one or who did it and all that. So that's a whole thing. And I'm already ranting like it's a conversation just about this. So like I said, that's a whole other video. I'm just here to talk about the trailer that they released today, because I thought Charlie Hunnam is in a role that I don't think I've seen him be in, and I'm curious about it. So we'll see what happens. Let me know your opinions and your thoughts on Monster as a series. Have you watched the other 2 seasons? Let me know what you think about them doing Ed Gein now. It made kind of sense that he would want to do this. I think they're trying to say you watch these horror movies but don't want to watch this true crime stuff, but the true crime inspired those horror movies. And I've heard it so many times as well before. People say, well, this is like me watching a horror movie when you watch true crime stuff, which I get it to a degree, but I think it's a fictional thing when you're watching a movie. These aren't real people or real people that exist. And maybe they're based or loosely based on it, but it's still not the real life case. But you know what? I could be wrong. I'm here not to tell you my way is the right way. I'm just here to give you my opinion and thoughts on it. But I'll be watching this season. Let's see how it is. Maybe I'll check out the other ones depending on how I see this season is done, and we'll talk. But make sure you check out our reviews on all the other stuff we have currently going up and catching up with TIFF. So I'll be having more reviews for that. I do have the Dead Man's Wire review up as well, which was my favorite film at TIFF. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. 50,000 subscribers is the goal. Let's get to it. As always, stay safe, stay positive.